So I had a viewer post a comment yesterday that made me think of this. So I want to talk to you guys about it a little bit. And it was one of those cases of having someone who posted more or less intermediate numbers, and I think he was about 5'7". He put his weight in kilos, and it came out to about 149 pounds. And he was wondering, was he going to be able to get any stronger? Was he going to be able to gain any more muscle? And when I told him, well, you need to eat more. Your body weight is too low for you to make gains. It's just not going to happen without the scale going up, and you're going to have to eat more food. And he said, yeah, but I don't want to gain any body fat. And this is one of the conundrums that we run into. And people need to set back and really assess their long-term goals when they make a statement like that. Now, if you weigh 150 pounds and you've been training a year, and you're not 5'3", 5'4", and you say that you want to gain muscle or gain strength, you really can't take that sort of mindset. Now, if you're perfectly happy with where you are and you're okay with making very, very, very slow to no gains over the next year, then that's okay, because some people just want to keep training. They're happy with where they're at. They're okay if they only make a little bit of progress because they want to stay fairly lean. They want to keep their razor sharp abs. That's okay. That's fine as long as you understand that by keeping your body weight that low and keeping your body fat that low, that you are sacrificing your future gains. And if you're okay with that, then that's perfectly fine, because you know what? Everyone has a right to whatever fitness goals that they want. And it's not my place to tell you that your fitness goals are wrong and that mine are right, or any of that, okay? That's not my place. That's for you to decide what you actually want out of your training. But when you step back and say something like, I want to get bigger and stronger, and you're already relatively lean, and you say, well, I want to gain more muscle and or more strength, but I don't want to get fat, and I don't want to use a bunch of steroids. Or they say they don't want to gain any fat and they want to stay natural. You guys ever heard the expression, you can want in one hand and shit in the other and see which one fills up faster? Well, that expression fits this scenario perfectly, because what you want isn't realistic. It's not within the realm of reality. You are in complete denial of reality with what you want. You can say that, and if someone is relatively lean and they say, well, I want to keep gaining muscle and strength and gain no fat, and I want to do it natural. Well, you know what? There's a lot of people out there who would love to have a threesome with their two favorite movie stars and have $1 billion in the bank. You might as well ask for that. That's probably just as realistic as what you want. Now, I'm not selling you products and supplements that are going to claim to do this, so I have no vested interest in lying to you about it. What people are going to have to accept at a certain point is that, barring people who already are a little fluffy, it's like me. Guys are like, well, you've been recomping right now. It's like, well, number one, I have muscle memory. I have been bigger and stronger than I am right now. And I'm not really lean. I can do it. The problem is that when you are borderline emaciated, when you're 10, 11% body fat, and you think that you are going to put on muscle and strength, new muscle and strength, that you have never had before at any point in your life, so you have no muscle memory to fall back to. If you honestly think you're going to do that without gaining fat, and you're no longer a noob, you finished, you've been training hard more than about 6 months, because you go through that honeymoon phase where you can even recomp as a noob. It happens all the time. Or gain very, very little, no visible fat, and make enormous gains for 6 months, then it stops. Well, when you're in that situation, it's different. But when you're already relatively lean, you've already been training at least 6 months, you're going to have to accept that if you want to get bigger, you're probably going to have to gain a little bit of body fat. And I'm not telling you that you need to bulk up to 25% body fat. I'm not telling you need to bulk up and get a gut. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you're going to have to accept that you might have to go up to 15 or 16% body fat. If you're at 11% body fat, you've been training a little while and you realize you do not have the amount of muscle or strength, either one, they go hand in hand really, that you want, but you're sitting at 150 pounds or 155 pounds, that's your problem. You are going to have to accept that you may have to gain a few pounds of body fat. I'm not saying you have to get fat. I'm not saying you have to have a gut. But what I am saying is you are going to have to eat enough food to fuel anabolic responses in your body. You're going to have to do that. Unless you are willing to put a bunch of hormones into your body to fuel that, to create that anabolic environment that you want, you're going to have to overfeed. Because that extra food creates a cascade of anabolic effects in the body. People need to understand that. A fat person, when they overeat, gains muscle. When you see someone who's lazy, who you think of as lazy, they don't exercise, but they're fat and 300 pounds, they might have more muscle than you have from weight training, depending on how big you already are, because that food itself is anabolic. The problem is they gained 3 pounds of fat for every pound of muscle that they gained, or 4 pounds of fat for every pound of muscle that they gained by doing it purely through food. That's not going to work. But at a certain point, you're going to have to accept that in order to gain any reasonable amount of muscle mass, you might have to gain a pound of body fat for every pound of muscle you want to gain. So if you want to put on another 5 pounds of muscle, you may have to put on 5 pounds of fat with it. Yes, you're going to have to diet it off later to get lean again, but you will even lose a small amount of the muscle when you cut. Unless you cut really slow, you're probably going to lose a little bit of the muscle with it, but you're still going to be bigger than where you started. So even if you do that, let's say you bulk up 10 pounds. You bulk up 10 pounds. And then you cut the 5 pounds of body fat off that you gained, and then you lose an extra pound of muscle. You're still 4 pounds of muscle heavier than where you started. And if you choose not to overeat enough to gain any reasonable amount of body weight, your strength's not going to go up. You're not going to create the anabolic environment in your body that you need to gain muscle. It's not going to happen. And if it does happen, what you are looking at is potentially putting in another 3 years of work to end up where you could have been in 1 year. In other words, it's actually much, much faster to just go ahead and spend 6 months gaining, or 5 months gaining that 10 pounds, and then spend 2 months dieting off the extra fat you gained, and in 6 to 8 months' time, have as much extra muscle as you would have gained over the next 2 to 3 years had you tried to stay at the same body weight and recomp or gain no fat. Particularly if you're going to sit at the same body weight, you're talking about recompositioning, very, very difficult to do. If you're already at a reasonably low body fat and you are completely natural, that is very, very difficult to do. And it's not an easy process. Your margin for error in your training and your recovery curve will actually require you to have a lot of training knowledge. You're going to have to really know what you're doing to pull that off. And if you're needing to come to YouTube to get advice from people, you probably do not have the requisite knowledge or experience to pull that off with any degree of success, because you don't understand your body enough. You don't understand recovery curves well enough to pull off a recomposition. Just due to the lack of extra food, the lack of recovery that you're going to have, you may not have the knowledge to program your training around this. And what these guys fail to understand, if a person can be 5'7" or 5'8" and weigh 150 pounds while being physically active, this is a person who has a lot of control in eating. They have a lot of self-control with eating. A person who can be and lift weights and keep their body weight that low does not have a voracious appetite. This is a person who's going to find losing 5 or 6 pounds of body fat extremely easy later. And that's the most ironic part, is that the people who actually find cutting body fat the easiest, again, people who won't overeat because they're scared of losing their abs, those are the people who actually find cutting to be easier than everyone else. Those are the people who need to be the least worried about cutting body fat later, because it's easy for them. It's extremely easy for people like that. Compared to a lot of us, those of us who struggle with weight gain, who struggle with appetite historically, we actually have to work at it a lot harder. It's hard for us. For the guy who can sit at 150 pounds while lifting weights 3 or 4 days a week and stay at that body weight, This is a person who has very good control of their appetite. All right, this is not a person prone to overeating. So for them, losing body fat is going to be a breeze. So these are the people who need to be the least worried about gaining a small amount of body fat while bulking, because it's going to come right off for them later. And that's the ironic part. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.